Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Mission Matters Money, your source for everything money. My name is Adam Torres. You can follow me on Instagram at AskAdamTorres to keep up with my book releases, book tour schedule, signings, all that other good stuff. Always love to connect with you there. And as always, if you'd like to apply to become a co-author of one of my upcoming books, just head on over to the website, moneymatterstoptips.com, and click on Become an Author to apply. All right, so today I have Brian Perry on the line, and he's a commercial agent focused on medical office space over at Health Pro Realty Group. Brian, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So I'm excited to get into the topic today. So talking about obviously medical space and the market, and also nuances of a deal and how doctors can benefit from the right type of deal over time. So let's just jump right in. So that being said, can you kind of let's start off with some of your areas of focus in medical office space, just so that the listeners will know a little bit more about your expertise.
Okay. Well, the medical office space is obviously very niche, right? It's not just office space, a residential, industrial. Doctors have a very specific need when they're going to find a place. Now, mostly I'm not dealing with doctors right out of school because they're probably going to join another practice. These are doctors that either realize they want to grow or they want a new space for themselves, and then they're going to negotiate a lease space. And when you're negotiating, you have to get certain things applicable to the doctor, and you have to know the market rate, the money, right? Because that's what it comes down to. So what we are local market experts, but we have national reach. We do have global, but I don't want to get too out there with that. But I'm based out of the Maryland, DC metro area.
Where do you find a lot of, because obviously, I mean, in any profession that's when you're really focused on your niche, you tend to get better than people really quick. So where do you find, a lot of doctors? I know you've had instances where somebody comes to you that was maybe somewhere else at another time or something else. I mean, where do you find people are going wrong in kind of their search and what they do typically?
Well, it's not that. I mean, doctors are smart by trade, right? They're very focused, very knowledgeable, but they don't know real estate. They know medicine. They know, other things. And one of the things they go wrong is they might negotiate directly with the landlord, or they think the landlord is like their best friend and they want to have a good relationship. But the landlord is in business to make money. And if you're negotiating with someone who doesn't know what the market is, doesn't know what to ask for. So imagine if you're an accountant or a lawyer, you can definitely negotiate a lower rate. But if it's a $54 a square foot, you can get maybe a lawyer will say, oh, well, let's get $50 a square foot, charge you $10,000. And then meanwhile, you could have gotten from 54 to 42 a foot. And picture a couple thousand square foot, and you'll realize that's a lot of money over a 10-year deal.
Let's talk about the nuances of structuring a deal, so and kind of the value add there. So let's go a little bit more in that direction. Tell us more.
Okay, so basically the negotiation is going to start with you'll take a client will reach out and say, hey, I'm looking for this area, and just like regular real estate, we have a system called CoStar that we use to kind of narrow down properties for that particular client. So that's a value add right there, right? So then the next step is we're going to set up a time to meet them, to go out, and we'll meet another agent there. We'll go see the property, and we'll kind of pick which properties we want to ask for a proposal. That's the next step. You come back, you say, okay, I like this and this. Let's ask for these proposals, and you don't negotiate before you get the proposals. You kind of just let them give their initial offer. So once they give you your initial offer, you're going to come back, you're going to know the market, know what you can get, and you're going to go back with another offer. And then there might be some back and forth, there might be some on the phone negotiation going on. Unlike regular residential real estate, commercial real estate, everything's negotiable. And for medical specific, you're going to be looking at tenant improvements. You're going to be looking at, an escalation rate you can negotiate. You're going to negotiate the rent per square foot. and you have to make sure that, the offer, that you're coming back reasonable, because think about if you make an offer that is so outlandish, nobody's going to do business with you. They're going to think you're like, you don't know what you're doing. So that's basically the general idea of how the deal gets going.
Give me a story, Brian. I feel like you got a good story out there on somebody you've worked with. You don't have to give their name, but I feel like you got a good story up your sleeve.
I don't want to incriminate anyone.
Yeah.
My only issue is actually initially we have these letters of intent, and in these letters of intent, they're not that long. So it's like you should be able to review that and not send me back an erroneous number. Because what happens is, this just happened. So I'm telling this person they're going to get a certain amount per square foot, and then, and in actuality, they came back later and said that, sorry, we didn't mean to do that. But meanwhile, I've already been negotiating with my client to try to, and you're like, an extra few thousand a year over 10 years, that's like a lot of money to a dentist. This isn't like the 1980s where, doctors were throwing dollar bills in the air. They're much more like sensitive to money and being smart. So I guess it's just paying attention to detail. But you know what it does, and this is another negotiation lever, is leverage. So when somebody makes a mistake in the deal, it's their job to so basically what I'll say is, I need you to make this right because you made me look bad in front of my client. And I have to do extra work to smooth that over to make sure that the client is still interested in making this deal go through. So that happened recently, and honestly, some people just don't, even these bigger firms, and I will not name some of these bigger firms, but they don't necessarily, they're just, maybe a deal's not big enough for them, but they don't take the time for that local expertise to know the market. And then, what happens to them, then none of us are going to bring clients to their building if they're not going to know, if the landlords are going to hire people that aren't capable of knowing what the market is and what the deal is. Because if we don't come back to our clients with a reasonable, we want to come back to our clients and say, we have multiple offers for you to mull over and let's talk about it. And if one person is completely unreasonable, like that was just a waste of our time to go to that building when they don't want to come back to the market. So in truth, it's a lot of fun. I have to admit, I have fun with this.
That's awesome. And I could tell it. I could hear it in your voice. It's like, I love when I hear somebody that's specializing, that's got their niche, and that I know you're in the trenches for your client. I love it, Brian. So that being said, final couple questions. So question number one, so that if somebody's listening and they want to inquire and think about working with you, number one, what geographies do you work in? And number two, what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
Okay, my area is Maryland, D.C., Virginia. I've been in Maryland a lot more recently, but those are my three big areas, but we actually have national connections. So no matter where you are, if it's a big enough deal or if it's a deal where I have to go work with the local agent, I'm fine flying somewhere else and kind of making sure the deal works out well. My cell phone works. My number is 973-668-9808, and also medicalanddentalspace.com is where you can kind of see the history of the group and what they're doing. And I really, really like this group. And very
awesome.
Very happy to help and answer questions. Yeah.
Well, hey, Brian, really appreciate you coming on the show today and sharing more about what's going on in medical office space and giving some tips on how to negotiate and what people should be thinking about when going through any type of process, in my opinion, for negotiation. I love all the info. And to the audience, as always, thank you for tuning in. Hope you got a lot of value out of this. If you did, don't forget, subscribe to the podcast. If you're watching this on our YouTube channel, don't forget, leave us some comments there. Love to engage with you there and think about your thought process on negotiating and some of the other topics that we covered today. And Brian, thanks again for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks so much. Appreciate it.